So I'm trying to explain something. I'm trying not to go up to. Oh, God, I hate mornings. Um, I'm having trouble moving my legs too. I just try to get up to make breakfast and get a bowl in it. Nuh-uh, not having it. Um, so a lot of times I have to shorten stories for people. People aren't really well at understanding. So if you shorten it, then they're like, "Oh, I get the meaning." But you lose a lot of context when you do that. Like one of them, I went to Venezuela during my teenage years. We spent less than 30 days there. I got invited to spend more time there. I also went back and I got invited to go back but did not go back. While I was there, I experienced a lot of different things, and that's my Venezuelan trip. But when I tell people that I spent a lot of time in Venezuela, and that is a lot, at least it seemed like 2 weeks or more. It seemed way more than 2 weeks. But when I got to shorten it for people and they go, "You never spent time in Venezuela," you have to kind of give them the short version. Like, yes, I did. I spent months in Venezuela before. My sister-in-law lives there. I had to go down to stay down there to meet her parents. So it was almost like we were living in her house. You know, we were kind of like living down there for a short amount of time. And this is what it's like. You know, there was even a bunch of dogs sniffing somebody under a bunch of palm leaves. Almost looked like a dead body on the side of the road. Now, it could have been a homeless man maybe sleeping on the side of the road with palm leaves all over him. Maybe he was drunk. Who knows why there was a man on the side of the road with palm leaves all over him, clothes tattered, with dogs sniffing him. But that's one of the things I remember seeing, thinking that that was a dead body. At least that's what my mother and father told me at the time. I said, "What's that?" My mother goes, "Oh, that's probably a dead body." I asked my sister, and she goes, "Oh, that's common in Venezuela," but I'm not sure if she actually saw it out the out the car. Maybe she thought I was pointing to the palm trees, not the guy under them. So there was a lot of stuff like that I got to witness. But I gotta tell you, they have pizza that's pretty damn good. It was a margarita pizza, same as I make, same as you can get in Italy. That's all the guy made was margarita pizzas. That's all. That's the only thing the guy made. Margarita pizza. But they were good, and honestly, they were safe. We know the tomato sauce is safe. We know the cheese is safe. We know the bread is safe. He's using mozzarella, basil, tomato sauce, and dough. No sketchy food there. And it's a restaurant, so or a takeout restaurant, so you know it's at least got a refrigerator and facilities to a certain point. But when I saw the facility of that restaurant I was brought to, and we walked in, it just, I don't know, the food looked dirty, the place looked dirty. And this was the most like the most expensive place, or the more expensive up class places in Venezuela. Fuck the fish with the head that will make you shit your brains. Fuck all the bacteria. It doesn't even look like those people are washing their hands. And the walls and just everything about it, when you look up close, just it doesn't seem to be obtained to my liking. And if you're gonna serve food, I want it to be safe. So it looked like a lot of the food there might have been a little bit questionable, or the people might have not been washing their hands. But there was a lot of good food there. And it was mostly served by street vendors, where You can fry it and you don't have to worry about the bacteria. You can cook a pizza and it comes out. You don't got to worry about too much of the meat being left out and maybe the meat wasn't too fresh or something like that. But when you're eating fish with the head still on it, or when you catch fish from a bad polluted area or during red tide season, or when you have fishermen selling their fish catches to these local restaurants, the fishermen could leave it in their tackle box for a couple hours, then put it in water, and then give it to the restaurant. They leave it on a bucket of water for another couple hours, and then they put it in a fryer later, and maybe it was caught during a low tide, during a bacteria bloom, or, you don't know exactly what the fish is doing. So unless you kind of can see that the fish is very, very fresh, and just because the head is on it doesn't mean it's fresh. You can cut the head off as soon as the catch comes in. But that's not the problem. The problem is you got to keep it very cold as soon as you catch it. That's why fishermen have an ice box that they throw the fish in. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why they keep it on ice on the docks. There's a reason why it goes into a cold room as they ship it out. There's a reason why it goes onto an ice or cold truck. But in Venezuela, it didn't seem like the fishermen were icing their catches before selling it to the restaurants. And that at a young age, it didn't quite bother me too much other than the head, but something about it seemed just not right. I mean, I've always seen fish being caught and put on ice right away, and I was told that's to keep it fresh. These fishermen seem to be keeping it on the hook and walking around with it to sell it. So we got fishermen walking around with fish in the hot sun trying to sell their catches. Now, in Lawrence, Massachusetts, that was a common sight for the Asians and the Spanish and also me. We would go fishing to get our supper sometimes. We would go down under the bridge. There was an Asian guy and some Spanish people who showed me how to do it with nothing but a hook. You just, at a certain time when they have the water low before they release the flood, you just put the hook in shiny, and because they pool at the bottom of the waterfall, they just bite it because apparently it's full of fish right there, and they eat it. And basically the Asian guy told me this: you guys in America, you don't know how good you got it. Back where I come from, you couldn't spend all day trying to fish and there would be nothing because the fishermen are already got everything. Here there are spots like this everywhere in America filled with fish, and you guys don't eat them. I'm like, I didn't know that there were so many hungry fish at the bottom of things like this. How was I to know they're so hungry down there that you can just jiggle a hook and they bite? He goes, that's the thing. You Americans don't know that you got food right there. And so every so often when I was hungry, I'd throw a hook down there, see if it was time, get a bunch of fish, because you just take a handful of hooks, you shake them down there, and you put like one hook on each finger. So like 5 hooks on each finger. Just, the little loop where you tie it on, you put each loop on each finger if you can. If not, you tie it off to the finger and loop it off. Then you put your hand in the water and you shake the hooks with no bait on it, and the fish just bite the shiny hook right away. And it's something to do with the water being low right under the water drainage from where they have the dam. I guess it's like a small dam. It's not really, it's more like this a waterfall. They have them in Lowell too, where it drops off and then they release the water. It's for the canals. It's probably for the canals. But anyways, at the bottom of these drop-offs, apparently there's lots of fish pooling deep under the rocks and near the rocks. And they come up to grab bugs and shiny things that are sinking that are food. So if you apparently take a bunch of shiny hooks and you shake them, they bite and you get 3, 4. The Asian guy got 5 every time. He would just throw the hooks in, come out. He was doing it so quickly too. It was like 1, 2, 3, catch, 1, 2, 3, catch, 1, 2, and I mean 5 at a time. Like you would take the hooks, put them in, shake them, 1, 2, 3, 5 fish. Then he would take a handful of more hooks. 1, 2, 3, 5 more fish. Then take a handful more hooks. 1, 2, 3, 5 more fish. He would grab all 15 fish and then walk off to his tent. You would smell some charcoal going and stuff. Eventually, I think he was arrested and the police wanted him out of there. You can't last long down there, so the Asian guy kept on moving on to different locations, but he still would fish down there and go off with them in a cooler. Anyways, in Venezuela, I didn't see everybody being able to afford to have a cooler full of ice ready for their catch of the day every day. So a lot of people are just trying to sell their catches. But it's important to have your catches cold as soon as you get them. That way bacteria doesn't grow. And that's why you don't really want to eat fish that might have been bought from sellers that don't have ice. And it's a common occurrence in many countries in South America, Africa, where people will sell their fish to restaurants and places straight off of the hook, and it's just common occurrence. But a lot of people don't realize in America, if you haven't grown up eating that type of bacteria, that you will get diarrhea like you never believed. See, these people in these countries, they're used to eating the same bacteria over and over through childhood. So they grow an immunity to the bacteria that happens to be growing in that area. Same thing with the not washing the hands. As a community, it will spread dysentery and disease, but as the community builds up an immunity, they just a couple cases here and there will get severely diarrhea or whatever. You'll still get it, but most people will have a basic immunity to those bacteria from growing up with them by growing up eating that fish. They'll get diarrhea of like maybe 40 times in their life, and then by the time they're in their 20s or 30s, they can eat fish that's been off the hook for a couple hours in the hot sun and then sold to a restaurant, put in a bucket of warm water, or was cold water, but now it's warm water. Then they put it on the grill, and it was caught on low tide or whatever. I mean, Americans, if they try to eat that, a lot of them would get diarrhea from the bacteria that's growing inside of the fish every hour it's in the sun because it's having slight decay. But most people can handle it if they've eaten this type of food many, many times before. Same way that certain animals, or after you eat certain foods, you can certainly eat a lot more of them. Like if you want to get rid of a peanut allergy, let's say that you have a really strong peanut allergy and you want to get rid of it, there's always the just eat it method. That's where your doctor will dose you out with a quarter of a peanut a day. You'll do this at a certain time. They'll monitor you to see if you get any severe rashes. They'll give you just enough to cause a little bit of a reaction, but not enough to close up your throat. So they'll figure out what dosage is under a deadly dose for you. They'll do this month after month, and then they'll up the dose of peanuts. And then they'll up it a little more. And then maybe after 2 years, you're now eating one whole peanut without dying. Then, after 3 more years, now you're on 5 peanuts. You can eat 5 peanuts without dying. Then in another 5 years, now you can eat a half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you don't die. Then, by the time you're 40 years old, you're now eating peanut butter and jellies with no problem, and you're not scared of peanuts anymore. That's a real treatment for peanut allergies that works. It's called the just eat it method, but you have to be very careful and you have to do the dosage exactly right. The way it is done is if you're allergic to a substance, you find out the non-lethal dose, and then you slowly bring it up over many, 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 many years. And that way you don't have to be worried about your allergy killing you anymore. If you accidentally get a little bit of peanut, it's okay because now you've built up a tolerance. But you have to take your peanut pill. I mean, literally, you're going to have to take a little dose of what you're allergic to over a long period of time to build up a tolerance to that allergy. And if you keep it up, you will eventually be able to eat that substance without dying or having much of a reaction at all. And that's a cure for allergies. It really works. But you have to do it over a long, long, long period of time. And it has to be done very carefully. Very, very carefully. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that there is a treatment for peanut allergies like that, but it's very difficult to maintain over all those years. But anyways, yeah. So, what do I tell people? I just tell them I lived down in Venezuela for a tiny, tiny bit of time. And then when they say, "Oh no, you never did it all. You never did it at all. You never been out to. You never even been in Texas. You never lived in New Mexico. I don't even think you went to Maine." Blah, 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 blah. Sounds like my mother and father. You guys are full of shit. I did live in Texas, New Mexico. I did visit my sister in law's parents and stay in her house. I did. I mean, might have not been for long. I say less than a month. But when people are fucking bullshitting, whatever, I try to tell them I could have stayed there longer for months. I could have spent 3 months down there if I wanted to. I could have gone back down if I asked. I mean, they want to get rid of me. My parents are always more than happy to get rid of me. If I asked my parents if I could go to Venezuela and then with my brother, they would have let me. The only hard part was to get the program and the state to agree. That's the problem. That's the only way they would say no. They'd be more afraid that maybe we'll get caught for what we're doing being bad parents. Maybe, how about his pills? How are we going to drug him and give him pills? Because the pills were off and on pills and more pills and more pills. Westford was the worst of it. And then there was a bunch of times in Chelmsford where my mother went nuts with it. And the more my mother acted crazy, it affected my mind and the way I acted. And then nobody wanted to ever tell her to stop. So my mother would act crazy. It would affect me. And then I'm crazy for not liking getting hit with a ruler, and I need medication. I'm crazy for getting reactions to the drugs. I'm crazy for not liking my mother drugging me before the age of 11 and then having to deal with the PTSD memories of that going on. And then when I'm finally figuring out what's going on, nobody wants to fucking listen. By that point, they're drugging me again. And my mother's already come up with a bunch of excuses and a bunch of tricks ready to go. But of course, the guilt was getting to her, and she shut down her liver. It was clear that the guilt of I didn't know what she was guilty about. I had no clue what she was talking about when she would act guilty and yell like, "You don't like me. You don't like me. You hate me." I do hate something about it, but she used to mention a lot of other stuff with that too, and it came across as very obvious that she was like guilty about something she was doing to me, and I had to tell her what it was. Like she would come by asking me to tell her, and I would tell her everything, and she would go, "No, there's something else." What the fuck do you mean there's something else? What is this something else you want me to tell you about? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. The only thing I don't like about you is you're acting crazy. You're hitting me with rulers. That's what I said. But see, the acting crazy was what my mother wanted me to talk to her about. See, I was talking at the doctor's office about how I was given a bunch of pills and had an overdose. But I didn't call it an overdose. I called it an allergy attack. And it scared my mother. But I didn't know I was scaring her with that. I was just trying to get better because something happened to my body. But my mother was scared and she thought I knew what she was doing at Halloween and on my adoption and when I had the overdose, because I kept on mentioning some of those things, but only the symptoms of them, and that something happened to me. And my mother thought that meant I knew and I was just keeping it a secret and I was out to get her or something. But instead, I had no idea what she was doing to me. I just wanted to get better and I was just giving the details I knew. And because of that, my mother wanted me to be like, I know something or whatever, but I didn't. That's the problem. I figured it out much too late. But then again, she was hiding information. She was trying to avoid responsibility. She was lying to me, lying to her husband, and the guilt was getting to her. I mean, I knew she was lying to Dad. I knew that she was lying to her husband. And I know that was getting her guilty as well. She was just feeling all different types of shitty. And she would try to, in her mind, blaming me. Oh, it's an adopted child. It's his fault. And in her mind, it would be like she started drinking, and then she would justify, wow, I should blame him. It's all his fault that I lied to my husband. And it's all his fault that I did these awful things. And it's all his fault that I whacked him with a ruler. And it's all his fault that he's on drugs. And it's all his fault he missed out on floor education. And it's all his fault he's stupid because he never studies all the time. Or it's all his fault he doesn't drive because he didn't work hard enough. Meanwhile, okay, it's my fault I didn't drive. Let's work with that one. When I had 2 years of a learner's permit, from 16 to 18, I asked constantly for somebody to show me how to drive, and I was refused. Nobody would ever let me learn how to drive, no matter how much I asked. My brother probably would have, but he didn't have a license. He lost his license from a DUI at that time. So when I had my learner's permit, at that time, I wasn't supposed to ask my brother to show me. That was one of the things I was told not to do because of what was going on with him. So I asked my father, and he always said, I don't have time, later, I don't have time. Then the last couple times I asked, he jumped down my throat about it. And it was clear he didn't want me asking no more. Now, the problem with that is then they try to turn around and blame like I didn't study hard enough to get my learner's permit. I already had it. I had it from 16 to 18. Nobody fucking bothered to do anything with me with it. Then when I was finally 18, I was smart enough to know I shouldn't be driving. I was, and should I drive at 20? No. And should I drive at 22? No. Should I drive at 24? No. And I realized that I should drive when I can move my legs, arms properly. When I can move my body properly, then I can drive. I got work to do.